Greetings and welcome to another episode of Black Mental Health Matters. Thank you for joining us today for an engaging and insightful conversation about mental health within the Black community. I am your host, Lachish J, CEO of LJR Training and Coaching, and I am an educator and a mental health advocate. Our topic today is the impact of colorism on mental health. We have the pleasure of learning from Ms. Terry Floyd, who is a behavioral scientist. Stay with us. All right. Welcome to another episode of Black Mental Health Matters. My name is Lachish J. Rigg, CEO of LJR Training and Coaching, and I am excited today to welcome back Ms. Terry Floyd for our discussion on colorism, the impact of colorism on mental health. I'm going to do something a little different than I've done previously and want to take time to get to know, for the viewers rather, to take time and get to know who you're going to be listening to today. And so with that being said, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about Miss Terry Floyd and give her the opportunity to share more about herself as well. So, in a world of the unknown where families experience trauma or severe life stressors, it is not uncommon for their health to unravel and generational traumas to be passed down. Ms. Terry Floyd, founder of TF Solutions Center, LLC, and the heartbeat of Note to Thrive collaborative coaching and consulting, accepts the call to be a change agent and lead the charge. She is a leader, innovator, published author, and pioneer. Terry's great passions are leading the charge on implementing a number of mental health education programs while also serving full-time as a behavioral scientist. In her role as a behavioral scientist, she conducts trainings, instructional design, change management, and building positive working relationships and collaborations. Woo, Miss Terry Floyd, you are amazing. Please tell the people a little bit more about yourself and what you're currently working on.
Currently, thank you for the introduction. Currently, I'm working specifically with families, providing parenting education as well as still incorporating mental health education as well. and tagging on a little bit of because I am a mother to a child that's neurodivergent, and so just bringing in that aspect of educating parents that are dealing with children that have special needs or the on the spectrum or neurodivergent, and trying to navigate into the education system and just incorporating this into everyday life. So.
Okay, yes. Yeah, and I just thought it was important for the viewers, the listeners to be able to get to know who it is that they're going to get some gems dropped from today. So they're going to be able to learn from and listen to. So a little bit more about me to give the audience that perspective as well. So I am the CEO of LJR Training and Coaching. Also, most of my professional work has been in the space of working in higher education in different capacities, including most recently with career and academics. And then also, I am a full time teacher of African American history and world history. And I do a few other things that I'm just truly passionate about, helping our community, particularly in the areas of mental health. I'm also a mental health advocate and student. And just really love helping to bring these topics to the forefront and helping educate us and allowing us to grow and flourish. So that's really just my heart. So thank you for sharing, Ms. Floyd. And I wanted to be able to give the listeners a little bit more about myself as well. That being said, this topic, which I know that it has been a topic that I have seen, sort of mentioned in different social media platforms and things of that nature, but I'm glad that we get a chance to sort of discuss it in a more, say, deeper way from the mental health perspective. So I'm looking forward to us being able to share with the listeners, the viewers, a little bit more in depth about this topic.
Absolutely.
So yes. So with that being said, I'm just gonna get us started and ask you, how does colorism within the Black community affect one's perception of self-worth and mental well-being?
And this is a great question because for certain, we know that colorism is one of like the many destructive outcomes that is embedded in the Black community and other communities of color. And it even goes as far back when we look at the root of it, back to slavery, resulting from the preferential treatment of the fair skinned slaves on the plantation. With you looking at that's house slaves, and then the darker complexion or the field slaves. And so that stemmed that jealousy and that kind of division between one another. And then even after slavery, you think about in the 1900s, colorism, it still continued, and even unfortunately still continues now, when we look at fraternities and some Black fraternities and sororities, or even in churches, and the history of using the paper bag test determine whether or not a person could be considered for membership, or how you view kind of or the value within that individual. And then especially when we think about the mental health education, as well as incorporating education alone, the infamous doll study that was conducted by the African American psychologist Dr. Kenneth and Mamie Clark in 1940. And this was another example of colorism, and seeing like kind of the history of of what all like stems and takes place. And you would think that it stemmed at an early age, that this is learned. This is something that we all have experienced in some type of capacity. But just even seeing that children that were presented with a Black doll versus a white doll, and they were asked to identify the good and bad dolls based on adjectives such as smart, pretty, or ugly. And then the children tended to apply the positive adjectives to the white doll. And then when it comes to the Black doll, it was more of negative adjectives. And so these residual effects from back in history that's rooted, and now it's brought forth now, that affects one's perception of self-worth and mental well-being, because it's this ingrained, and it's this information that is taking place when you view yourself, and sometimes even looking around and seeing other people older family members in your family, or just outside in how they view people. If we're not careful, that also plays a part and affects a person's self-worth, and seeing like, well, my skin is a little bit darker, so I don't really matter, or I'm a little bit lighter, so I'm more important than other people, in which it should not be this way. But this is kind of the consequences from the root of colorism and how it continues to build on top of each other. So.
Absolutely, Ms. Terry Floyd. This is, as you're saying, something that is been pervasive throughout history. And as I said, being that I'm an African American history teacher, these are, as you said, since slavery and sort of this preferential treatment and, within families, this is something that I not only teach about, that many of us can unfortunately relate to within the Black community, being made to feel like you're too dark, or, you're lighter, so, you're the better one. And these are things that many of us, myself included, have experienced, and it's an unfortunate reality and a consequence of what we've historically experienced within the diaspora, right? So this is information that we want to definitely talk about and work throughout, our time. Okay, number 2, what are some of the key ways in which colorism influences access to mental health support and resources?
I think that influences access to mental health support and resources now. Um, I will start with definitely representation matters. It's absolutely important that we have therapists that look like us, that also have the acknowledgement and awareness, even if it's from their own experiences. Now, hopefully, of course, we're all still kind of working on it and learning our own self-discovery and making sure that we're have removed ourselves from that concept of like the implicit bias, as well as a little bit of judgment. Of course, that's an internal thing that we definitely each all have to work on. But at the same time, having that representation where you're feeling more comfortable with talking with individuals that look like you and they're creating that safe space, I think that provides the influence and access to the mental health support and resources. You have a lot of, or a number of different organizations now that focus on individuals that look like us, or people of color, or the therapy for Black girls, and therapy for Black men, and all of these things where they're also incorporating colorism and how the impact and effect from outside, even dealing with family members, or just even yet that particular generation. I think that's also important to incorporate, because now we have the awareness and we know about it. Of course, it stemmed even back with Dr. Kenneth with the Black doll test, but we have the doll test. We have that information that we can see, like, okay, well, this is what it is, and what can we do about it to provide that support and those resources for individuals that feel away or need the support and guidance and more education about it as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. Thank you so much for that very important information about resources and support. So can you discuss the interplay between colorism, societal beauty standards, and its impact on mental health outcomes? I know you've kind of been touching on a little bit of this as you've been answering the previous questions, and this is an important one.
It's definitely kind of stemming from the first question that we asked. We know that where it's rooted, and it stemmed from, even it's an added on layer when it comes to racism, or even intra-racially that we're experiencing. But one of the things, especially as children, we equate self-worth with the messages that we receive. So seen as less favorable, sometimes the darker skin tones are often contrasted with biased beauty standards. Colorism is usually expressed through microaggressions and indirect messages in which skin tones are deemed beautiful. Even the texture of our hair, that's another one, but that's texturism that also plays a part, but goes along with colorism. And so it's just the discussion and that interplay between the societal beauty standards and the impact of mental health incomes. It's like, oh, if your hair's straighter, it's prettier. If it's long, then that's when the perms were introduced. And to each his own, whatever your preference is.
Right.
So we have to be mindful kind of the discussion that we use, or the dialogue, or how we explain certain things, because it's like,
Yes.
oh, stay out, don't go outside or be in that sun too long because you can get darker. And so we're not
Right.
thinking that that's something that could be a negative, but at the same
Right.
time, depending on who it's delivered from, and then you have a child that was born a little bit darker, and they're like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
is that what happened to me? And so they're processing it all in a different way. And so just that we have to be mindful of the conversations that we have, the certain things that
Mm-hmm.
we used to say, or we were used to hearing even when we were
Yes.
children, and now
Right.
that we're as adults, being mindful of kind of the delivery of how we say certain things, and how it could cause harm to other individuals, and plant
Right.
this have this discussion of interplay between the societal beauty standards, because then you look on media and you see kind of
Mm-hmm.
even when it comes to that. But I think it's definitely important that at home we have
Right.
the discussions, be comfortable with having these uncomfortable conversations, but then making sure, again, working on our own biases, to make sure that now we're not projecting, and doing a little bit of work internally within our own selves when we're ready to have those
Mm.
conversations.
You said so much important good stuff right there. Absolutely, being mindful of our word choice, because words do matter, and many of us who have been around prior to this current generation, we are used to hearing, if not saying, certain things like, okay, like you said, don't stay out too long, get darker, or the hair, it's very much tied texturism. Once upon a time, there was a school of thought by some that you have to have your hair straight, or
Yes.
else, you're not pretty enough, you won't get a job, to the workplace, and things of that nature. And unfortunately, some people have bleached their skin wanting to be whiter, and so the mental health challenges that come for someone to think that they need to do that. It's been an unfortunate reality that has, taken place. So very important what you shared, and we will continue on this topic. The next question is, in what ways does colorism contribute to internalized racism and its effects on mental health among individuals?
Um, the communities of color, because again, viewing the skin tones, we even now have discussions and talk about it, or even can kind of see it, especially when it comes to different media representation, or even in the workplace, that some have a little bit more privilege when it comes to the lighter skin tones. And that itself will have that, even unfortunately, internalized racism within our own groups and communities, that puts darker skinned individuals sometimes at a disadvantage.
Mm-hmm.
And so, even with it, the brown paper bag test, and just even the how it has the concept, or even the thought, sometimes have continued to grow.
Mm-hmm.
That when we look at it, it stems over into even health aspects
Mm-hmm.
of it, where lighter skinned individuals are bestowed better access or privilege, or better mental and physical health. And then even looking at the kind of the black and white narrative, where there's millions of people that are at a disadvantage, because even in the healthcare space, we're still having this conversation where even with black maternal, the health, as well as just going to the doctor on a
Mm-hmm.
regular. Sometimes it's even if we will tell our doctor, and if they do not look like us, and of course their representation isn't there, how we're feeling, they determine our pain is not as severe as we're saying it, because we're deemed as can be able to receive or handle pain a little bit better, or
Mm-hmm.
something. In which I've just, that right there is already an issue within
Mm-hmm.
itself.
Right.
They're still working on, even when it comes to the education space there. And even now, where a lot of the models, or the figures, or diagraphical designs of in textbooks, especially when you're in school, a lot of times it's only focused on a particular color, skin color.
Mhm.
So now there's more individuals that are like, okay, well, let's kind of change the tone, darken the color a little bit to make it more relatable, to humanize that
Yeah.
there are individuals that are of different colors,
Yes.
different skin tones. And so even with that, it's like it's just a part of everything, unfortunately. I guess not just unfortunately, but fortunately as well, because it's now we're bringing and having this conversation and
Mhm.
talking about the colorism and not just sweeping it under the rug, because
Yes.
it's like, oh, it's a known thing, but you just don't talk about it, you deal with it.
Mhm.
So it's important that we have to talk about it and speak up, because if we do not, of course it will continue to be internalized. But if we're making it aware, having the awareness, talking about the ideas of self-doubt, even when it comes to, like, again, with the texturism or the
Mhm.
particular skin tones and the skin colors, if we're talking about it a little bit more, then we're able to process it and know that we're not alone in this, and not just truly have this internalized, but creating this idea that we all matter, that we all
Mhm.
have opportunity, that we all can be successful. Now, if there a little bit of a disadvantage with based on certain classes, it is. However,
Mhm.
we still can have a chance to thrive in this
Mhm.
world and in this space. And even if there are children or individuals that are darker skinned, skin tone, to make sure that we are allowing them to utilize their voice and to know that they matter. I think
Mhm.
important to have those conversations, that even though we may not feel like, because you can cover it up and make it seem like
Mhm.
you're strong, but
Right.
individually, everyone, we're all internalizing things a different way. But
Yes.
again, being open, being mindful, and creating that safe space for everyone to feel safe enough to have those conversations, to talk about what it is
Mm.
they're feeling. And even when they express it, don't downplay what they're talking about. Like,
That's
acknowledge
it.
their emotions and allow them to express what they feel.
All of that, Miss Terry Floyd, all of that, so many good things that you said, including but not limited to Black maternal health or Black health in general, and how we're, treated differently. Excuse me, and our pain is not sometimes seen as true because of our strength, and
Mhm.
that whole, badge of strength. We're supposed to be strong, but also like the all voices matter, no matter what we look like. Because yes, absolutely. Even we may try to like not like say we're bothered by it. People of say a darker shade, but in our humanity, like it's hurtful then and now. But fortunately, we are starting to address these things more. So I 100% agree with you. Like once upon a time, this was taboo. Like I know this was something before I knew the words colorism or any of these associated words that we're discussing. I could feel it. I
Mhm.
could feel within my own family the varying shades of people and who were deemed to be a little better, whether they were trying to be that way or just kind of like went with it, right? Because of their shade, and those who were a bit darker. And, I could just tell in my reflection of those individuals trying to like put forth, something to make themselves feel better. Right. So sometimes it's manifest in different ways with different shades in how they say things, how they move, in an attempt to kind of combat that feeling of like not self-worth, like not having self-worth. So it is important for us to make sure that we listen and not marginalize. That's another thing that I think I heard you say, not marginalize any voices, but allow them to be heard. And that's something that I'm a big proponent of. As a teacher, I don't just like call on the people that, are the first to raise their hand, but I try to make sure that I like reach out to those who may not want to say something, because they probably do, but they probably feel like overtaken by others because of, the various discrimination, including but not limited to colorism. So thank you. Just dropping gems. I hope our listeners are taking notes mentally or writing something down so that they can really learn and grow and help others, right? So we want to help one another, educate one another on this. So with that being said, how can mental health professionals address the specific challenges faced by individuals dealing with colorism in therapy sessions?
I think First, mental health professionals definitely have to work on their own implicit bias. It's definitely important that we work on our own to make sure that we're not internalizing it or even projecting. If there's, depending on whatever the conversation that your client may bring to you, that you're not taking it internally, and then there's some things that kind of activate some areas that we may still need to work on as well. But I think it's also important for mental health professionals to acknowledge and validate their clients' feelings. But one or three questions that I think that would be great, even whatever aspect that you're in, whether you're a mental health professional, or educator, or you're working with different groups of individuals on a regular, just questions to ask yourself. One, what are my own biases and issues with colorism? And how do I feel about my own skin color, if anything? The second question is, who is being uplifted or disparaged in this conversation or piece of media? How does skin color affect its meaning? What stories are we telling about people with this skin color? You know, media can do a lot of things.
Yes.
A lot of things.
Yes. So true.
And then the third question is, how might this be perceived by someone with a lighter or darker skin color? And how could that impact their view of themselves and their place in the world? So I think that that's like some questions that we can definitely ask ourselves, especially in the mental health space, when we're interacting with our clients or interacting with other peers or individuals. And also, it's definitely important to have the education and acknowledgement of colorism, and that we need to dismantle kind of this skin tone bias, because I mean, and help promote healing for individuals that are experiencing, that have experienced it, that have been impacted by it, because in some form, we've all been impacted by it in some type of way, if we just kind of look in and pay attention and have the awareness. But this is definitely the ways that I feel that would be best for mental health professionals to address specific challenges that's faced by individuals who are dealing with colorism, just to create that safe space and be open and mindful, and then also do kind of a self-check within our own selves to make sure that we are not projecting our own biases, or that we even have the awareness to know about colorism, and we even believe that it actually exists. Because sometimes in our group, some just say, oh, that's just in your head, it's not real. And so it's there, and we need to acknowledge it as we're going to be open to like, again, like we stated previously, to be mindful and know that my experience isn't your experience, Lachish, just like your experience isn't mine, and vice versa, and dealing with other individuals as well. So it's definitely important to be mindful and be open and be willing to listen to another person's experience and how they handle and process and internalize things.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. I love that you brought it back to that mindfulness, and that you mentioned that, be it as a mental health professional or educator, or, any other professional, that we sort of ask ourselves questions, which allows us to reflect and make sure that, as you're stating, that we're not bringing our bias as we're projecting, or as we're listening and guiding and what have you, that we're asking ourselves the tough questions, because it's hard to, be there and give someone a safe space and help and guide someone if you're not doing the work on yourself simultaneously, oftentimes. So absolutely. No, this is some good stuff right here. And yes, it is a thing. And unfortunately, sometimes people are very dismissive of, people when they're sharing their true feelings. And I love that you said healing, right? Because we are all on a journey of healing. We're at a different, place with it. Some of us may be a little bit further along, but we're all we've experienced this all in one way or another. Yes. We really have, directly or indirectly. So helping one another along the way is so important. So yes. So our next question, and thank you, Ms. Terry Floyd. You were really helping the people here. Hopefully, again, that they are, taking notes mentally, or preferably write it down, right? I'm a teacher. I write it down, right? Write it down. So are there cultural or community-based approaches that can help combat the negative effects of colorism on mental health?
Absolutely. I think continuing to have the conversation, utilizing our platforms, even such as the Black Mental Health Matters platform, where we're open to having these discussions and topics about colorism and the effects and the impact on mental health and how it's affecting various groups. I think mental health education, like topics of colorism, having those that open kind of forums, we're creating those safe spaces where there's no judgment, but even if we're expressing our views, our opinions, still having being kind of like uh, the what's the word I'm trying to say, the neutral space where everyone can kind of lay it out, but then just having a comfortable conversation, even though the topic is uncomfortable,
Right.
by allowing everyone to kind of voice their concerns, but being open and being willing to listen. Because sometimes we always just want to answer and not
Yeah.
really listen to somebody else, but like, let me get my point across. But having the openness to see what another person that does not look like you, maybe a little bit of a darker skin tone or even a lighter skin tone, but having the awareness, because even colorism, it go actually is on both sides. I know sometimes we highlight the darker skin, but then even when you see sometimes darker toned individuals make fun of lighter toned individuals, and so even with that, it's like it affects us both in different ways. And again, with the words, it's definitely important that we're mindful of our words. Having the podcast discussions, having panel discussions regarding colorism, I think that's creating this space where everyone is having the conversation. Conversation is key and it's definitely important. And I think that that's the way that we can help combat the negative effects of colorism on mental health, by creating that space. Now, of course, there are times and moments that we share our thoughts and our opinions on social media. Sometimes it's not really kind of regulated as much as possible. And then it can just create another fire. But even when we look at that, we're still talking about it. We're having the awareness. We ain't going to be on the side or understanding to have the openness, no, but at least we're still talking about it.
Right.
And we're putting it out there. We're expressing our feelings, we're expressing our emotions, expressing things that we're dealing with or the concerns that we have. And this is allowing platforms to also see what the culture and the community is talking about. And when we can see what the people out there, what they're requesting or what they're looking for, the concerns, then we can create the community-based approaches to react or to provide solutions. So I think the more that we talk about it, the more that we are in the know, especially if we're in this mental health space or the education space, then we know what is it that our people need help in, or what is it that they need to know more about. And so by having the conversations, then we can create the safe spaces to educate or provide this safe space to allow those that are experiencing it and feel a certain way to know that they're not alone, and this is the support or these are the resources that you can utilize to help you and to help us.
Yes. Like I said, I hope people are making notes because I'm just taking a lot in. So true. So much of what you said, all of what you said, but specifically listening and being open to hearing, right? Because you're so right. Oftentimes we're just listening and we're like already, ready to say no to somebody or dismiss or, things as we've been saying. But just being open is a very helpful means to healing. Not only healing from, colorism, but just healing in general from the various traumas, racial trauma, things that just we experience in general, just, being of African origin, wherever we are, wherever we were brought to. So just help listening to one another, and just being able to be there and allow for someone to share and respond favorably with gentleness is important of itself. And then I like how you did a really good job of showcasing a helpful way to utilize social media, right? Where I know I've done a lot of research and share with my students about some of its detriments, because unfortunately, oftentimes it's used, and especially with young people, it can, kind of make you feel like you need to have a certain beauty standard because of the way some of the people are portrayed there, airbrush, Photoshop, so on and so forth. But I like how you mentioned that when we start talking about the topic, which I prefer, I'm old school, in person, conversations in that way, as opposed to putting things out there, which you don't get a chance to have a full conversation, and then little snippets can be taken and trolls kind of say things. So there's that part, but I love how you're saying that at least bringing the conversations forth can increase the awareness that it is something to be addressed within the community, along with other topics, so that we can then grow subsequently by knowing what it is that we need to work on, so to speak. So I love that you put that positive purpose and way that social media can be used for good. So yes, thank you for sharing that. Such good stuff. All right, so well, how about media? Here we go. Next question. Perfect timing. Woo. What role does media representation? Let me just start that off again. Let me run it back, because media. What role does media representation and portrayal play in perpetuating colorism and its impact on mental health? I'm here for this one. I'm here for everything you have to say and for whatever I might want to add in. So, yes, Miss Terry Floyd.
The media's influence is undeniable, as it bombards with messages to divine beauty within narrow parameters. Okay, we know that. It plays a very important role, because a lot of times, and which I would say now we're with the conversation that we're having even now, and even in past times, where you see a little bit, we're having more representation of different skin tones. So I will give that. However, still a lot of times it's still often favoring lighter skin tones. Okay, we know that. And so depending on, now we have like these different stations or things that take place that highlights all things black or all black, or the darker skin tone hues, which is definitely important. I agree. I support that for certain. But I feel like even just kind of at the overall media platform, there's still kind of like those differences, disparities. But hey, we got to crawl before we walk. Having the awareness, but knowing that,
yes,
knowing that when we look at the representation and how it impacts and affects our teens, our young people, even not even just teens, women,
everybody,
men,
all of us,
all of acts. Right. Yep. Because there's certain things that will kind of activate feelings, emotions.
Activate our past life when we were younger. Like, why am I feeling some kind of way? And we gotta do a self-check. Like, no, don't be led, don't be lied to. Yes.
And so that definitely still plays a part in shaping the societal perceptions, including the standards. Now, one thing that I will say, while the reinforcing of beauty standards, kind of focusing on the Eurocentric beauty standards, portraying lighter skin tones, and the epitome of beauty. I will say now, even the beauty industry now is embracing your natural curls, or embracing and having makeup that matches the very different skin tones. So we are in these spaces now where they're opening and realizing, like, hey, okay, no, we missing a whole demographic, or a whole market of individuals, where now we need to expand. Is there still work? It is, but you can see that the attempt is happening, taking place, because we have the skincare products or the hair care products that are catered to different textures and types of hair, and we're embracing it more and saying that it's not just one particular way that is identified as beauty. Now, even with that, with the media now embracing it, I still feel like that there's an area that internally within our communities that we still have to work on embracing and having those conversations. And it could just be because it's older individuals in our group, because of the things that they have been, not gonna say brainwashed, but conditioned to handle or deal with to navigate into these spaces where there's like, if we're now embracing the locks again or embracing the afro or the curls, sometimes like, you can't wear that in corporate, like, but why not? I mean,
yes, that's so true. So many generations that are contributing to the conversation that it can be challenging, but yes, it takes time. It takes time. Yes.
it definitely takes time. But I think, again, with the more that we see individuals that look like us, the more that we see individuals that are embracing their natural hair, than their standard of like not using the perms, or if you want to, again, I'm not with the don't use the perm or not. It's your preference, whatever.
Right. Just be comfortable to be able to do either. If you want to wear your natural hair, we embracing it more now. But if you want to wear perm, that's on you. Like, but at least we feel more supported now in natural hair than once. I get that. Yeah, I agree.
And even if you're still kind of battling with it, just don't project. Okay, because to each his own. Whatever you feel comfortable with is your business. It's about embracing who you are and knowing that we can switch it up any kind of way. But I think that it's definitely important to see now that we have those various of representation, the various the variety of portrayal that that we actually see individuals that look like us, and we can celebrate that. Again, like I said, it's still kind of a little bit of a challenge at times, but when we see the representation, we celebrate it, be happy, and continue to move forward and work on our own internalized dealings and feelings and emotions that we're dealing with. And like you said, sometimes we may, even as adults, see certain things and it may activate something. It's like, all right, well, why do I feel this way? Or why did that bring this out? What is this something that I still need to work on to make sure that I'm truly on my healing journey? Because a lot of times, even with healing, it's not linear. It happens in different ways. And there are some things that still will activate. You thought that you had moved past this, but something else may bring it out. But having the awareness and being mindful is definitely important. You see, I keep bringing up awareness and mindfulness because that's important.
It's so important. It's so important. As a matter of fact, I'm not even going to move on from this topic because you're saying so much good stuff. I feel like there's more that we can even chat on this part, the media representation, because I agree that we have made progress by way of, let's say, natural hair. That's a really good one that you brought up. I'm so glad to see more Black females being able to feel comfortable. Like, I love to see the younger generation. That's one of the things that I love about the younger generation, seeing them wear their fro, their locks, their braids. And once upon a time, not to make myself sound old, but once upon a time when I was back in the day, blah, blah, dot, 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 like, you were made to feel by society that you had to have your hair straight as a means to not only look beautiful, but as a means to get a good job and all these things. And I heard you say something like, say having conversations with older generations, like, are you wearing your hair like that? You can't get no job. So, the unfortunate reality is that they've, as you said, been conditioned. That's a good choice of words. We have to be respectful of words. Words matter. So as a means to be sensitive to them, the older generations and the things that they only know to say, they've been conditioned to think a certain way. And I think, those of us who are kind of in between, say, that older generation that was conditioned on colorism and the, say, newer generations where, for example, natural hair is more celebrated. Those of us that are kind of in between, we can slip back, be activated, as you say, and to look on to, say, someone that is younger than us, let's say, and be like, like have a quick thought, like, why are they wearing their hair like that? Or why are they doing that? And we just be like, no, not doing that. Not my mama. Not my auntie, or insert any other, matriarch, and, bless them. They mean well. They only knew what they knew, right? And just trying to make sure that we don't fall into that and we celebrate one another, regardless of our shade, hair texture, and things of that nature. But like you said, we made some progress, but there's still, progress to be made, be it, our internalized things, what we gravitate towards, right? Maybe we gravitate towards looking at the lighter shade people and not necessarily the programming that has the darker shades or the in between, right? All of it. And so I think that it's important for us to just be mindful, as you said, and work on our own implicit bias and try to celebrate one another, in the various platforms or media spaces and things or whatever. Let us try to get past maybe once upon a time just gravitating towards watching things where it's just a lighter shade. But it's all of us because, in my opinion, we're all beautiful, all shades of the diaspora. So more work to be done. But yes, it's a lot of some progress, I should say, that has been made. And I'm grateful in a spirit of gratitude. Anything else that you want to add on to this discussion? I feel like there's more that I could say. This could be a whole topic by itself, media representation. Yeah, because it's so multifaceted. We've been talking about like some space of media, like TV, social media, but there's so many things. So any other things you want to add on to that before I move on? And I might add on something too. I don't know if it pops in my head.
I don't think, well, like you said, it's definitely, it's multifaceted where we can definitely cover that. I'm even thinking back when, I don't want to tell my age, but when we had music videos, and a lot of times there was colorism that even took place, even in the hip hop world or realm of spaces, who was considered the it girl compared to the ones who kind of in the background. And so with that dynamic,
That's true.
where you see kind of the transition and shifts, and even still now where there's certain things that have even with some of our hip hop artists that started out darker and now appear to be a little lighter, where you can also see what that person experienced internalized
Yes.
of the projection or the things that were said to her in particular. She wanted to change her features. So it's still a kind of an ongoing thing that they experienced in the 90s, and now it's like you have a little bit more money or have access where you're still dealing with those things that affected you 20-30 years ago. Definitely, the representation, like you said, it's a start. We have seen progress and changes, but we have the impacts that affected us years ago when it wasn't really accepted, so individuals now that they were teenagers and now adults that are still impacted by that internalized racism or the colorism within our community. So,
no, you brought up a good point. No, you really did, because and hip hop, fun fact, or call it that or not, when I was back in my day, I love that. Now I'm just doing that for fun. I hope someone's listening and like, really, girl? Yes. Back in my day, I actually used to write lyrics and perform in hip hop, collaboration of hip hop and reggae. It's just my whole space, my whole vibe. And so to your point, there are those of us who grew up in that sort of, you know what, I'm gonna venture to do it. I'm gonna say 90s hip hop. So you can calculate my age if you want. Look, the melanin is popping. So you can guess my age if you want to. I'm okay with me. I love me. But that being said, 90s hip hop, it's true. Those of us, myself included, can reflect on, what we were fed at that time through the music, and I do have a love for 90s hip hop. But at the same time, when we're real, we can reflect and think, what was I listening to? What was I watching? Be it colorism or otherwise, consider whether or not that was healthy for my mind and what have you. So I'm very intentional now. That's one of my words. I'm very intentional now when I think about what I consume by way of media and otherwise. And I think that is healthy and helpful for us to do so, because we do hold on to stuff if it's not addressed. And many of us, what happens is we kind of like, I think you said this in so many words, like push things under the rug or sweep things, and I said taboo or whatever. So there's many things that now are a little less taboo than during the 90s that many of us that grew up in that era are having to like wrestle with. And some people, if it's unresolved, you're seeing some of the manifestations of what were not addressed at that time related to colorism and otherwise. So it's really important to, I believe, reflect and really work through whatever it is that we may have been experiencing in the past to now. So I like that you brought that up. I think I was gonna say something else, but you know what? You were just on it, Miss Terry Floyd. So I'm gonna just keep it moving, because you just, queen to queen. I love it. Y'all taking notes out there, because Miss Terry Floyd is helping you to break down some things that you may not have otherwise understood. So Anything else you want to say before I go to the next question?
Not that I can think of.
All right. Well, we could always leave some space at the end for what is it? What do they call it? Like just little like last minute takes or something to say some little commentary if we have some more time for the people. All right. So we already touched on yes, you know what? We just gonna do a little add-on to what you previously stated. So here we go. Are there generational differences in how colorism affects mental health? Yes. And if so, what are they? Miss Terry Floyd, take it away.
You're right. Yes. There are definitely generational differences. And I just want to focus because we already kind of touched on the older generations and like not telling our age, but we're the ones who's in the middle. Okay. So we've experienced it.
Guess our age if you want to, if you dare, and we don't care. Mike check.
But we look at even our younger generations or our younger people, they are definitely breaking these generational thought patterns on colorism because they have no problem. And I love it.
Yes.
Making older generations uncomfortable. They definitely challenge the status quo, and I'm all for it because they're about addressing it and having the conversations and talking about what we have been trying to undo 500 years of systematic miseducation about certain things, especially when it comes to the root of colorism and how it has transpired and created its own issues and differences and division within our respected groups. I feel like that even with this, having the conversations important, like you said, embracing their natural hair, wearing their locks, even the starter locks is not deemed as pretty, but they're still embracing it and creating ways to make it work for them.
Yes.
Even with wearing the natural froze or loose natural as you want to have it, their skin complexion and tone and with their shea butter and the cocoa butter and all of those great things, making songs and embracing it. I think that it's definitely important where we have artists that are talking about it, like Brown Skin Girl or in cocoa butter and things in that nature. I think it's all great. I want to say, even when we think about like the different generational differences, it's like at this time that we were embracing and proud, but then it's and so it's like I feel like we're embracing it back again. It's like
yes,
it repeats itself.
And I'm here for it. Yes. Oh my.
We're at that space, and now it's at a different or it's at another level because now we have social media. We have not just the media representation of what the media these mainstream media want to project, but we have YouTube, we have our own podcast, we have our phones that have cameras, social media, TikTok, and all of these things that we can embrace. And so now that's how I think that the generational differences and how we approach and attack it in a different way.
Yes.
We have our own platforms that we can create to embrace and have those uncomfortable conversations. And even sometimes generations will call people out. And
as should be. Yes, as should be, respectfully. My favorite thing to say is say what you're saying, but respectfully.
Yes.
My students know, like, say what you're gonna say. You know, we're all imperfect. So if there's something you need to let me know, you know, miss, you forgot something. Maybe I didn't, but okay, maybe I did. But you just have to come to me respectfully. You can talk to me, but don't come into me sideways with it.
Exactly. And that's what I'm with you on. It's like I'm definitely encouraging and telling you to activate and utilize your voice, but do it in a respectful manner, as well as being open that everyone is entitled to their own opinion and we're going to be respectful. We may not agree all the time, but I'm going to be open to listen to what you have to say, as well as I want you to be open to listen to what I have to say.
We can disagree without being disagreeable. That's another one of my favorites. That part. Yes. And oh my gosh, what you just said, one of the things that you just said was what I was like in my head thinking during one of our previous questions. And you said it so lovely. And I apologize, I'm not going to say it exactly the way you said it, but something to the effect of No, I forgot. Man, it's gonna come back. It's gonna come back on our outtakes. But everything you said, this is not what I was gonna say, but what I'm gonna say right now. Another thing I was thinking was I am all for us celebrating our beauty. Oh, it came back to me. Yay. You said something about now we have our own platforms. We have taken more control of the power of saying how we feel about beauty. So we're not just waiting for the media, older people, whoever that might be, to tell us if we're beautiful or not. We have all these various platforms. Another good purpose of social media, which I like how you were laying out the goods, even though a lot of research has been done about the challenge, especially for young people. But some of the good is that we're not waiting for nobody to tell us we beautiful. We out here have various podcasts and YouTube shows and, darker shade women and lighter brown, everything in between. We're showcasing our beauty, natural, what have you, hair, makeups, fitting our own skin color, not makeup several shades lighter because they didn't have makeup for us then. And also too, not only showcasing the beauty, but also the brilliance, like sort of like a great combo. Like when you're beautiful and you're smart, like I'm all for that. So that's what I was gonna say. And I am a big proponent of just telling somebody they look good. Like I love to say, "Oh, you look beautiful today, sis." Look, we need to encourage one another. We can never wait for anybody. And I think that's a large part of why we are now in the space that we are in with the progress that's been made, because we are celebrating one another. And shout out to the younger generation. They're really doing a beautiful job of that. Yes. So we're taking it into our own hands. And I love that.
Me too. And like, I'm just going to add, we're having those crucial conversations, support and having the openness, and even as older generations, sometimes the way a younger person may highlight the things, having the openness to understand that this is how they're embracing it. It may not be the way that you would have done it. However, there's still some ways that even when you were younger, that your older generation didn't really agree with or view. Having the openness and embracing you. And so we all have to learn. It's all about education and embracing and having the openness. But even if they're doing something that you totally don't agree with per se, it's not projected, but find another way to kind of navigate those spaces and provide a little bit of education without being judgmental. And that's still something
that part. Yeah, no, I love that you brought that up. That's so true. Like I know, bless her, I miss her, my grandma, may she rest in peace. I know when I was growing up, she'd be looking at me like, what? So there's always the older generation that's like looking at us sideways, like, I'm gonna get a little accent. Oh, what y'all doing? No, sir. Like they will be like questioning you. So in a similar fashion, what I'm hearing from you, what I'm taking away is that we want to like celebrate the younger generation and some of what they're doing, like to promote, beauty of us. You might be doing a little unconventional ways that we might activate. Like, my mama would have never. My grandma would have never let me reflect, ask some questions. Is this helpful or harmful? Am I in a spirit of judgment? And finding ways to help support and educate, because they need a little education. Things is a little questionable, but we have to find a way to balance. Like, okay, they're trying to do something good and it's helping the culture, but let's just look guidance without judgment. So I like that you said it. That's true. Be like, what are y'all doing right now? But yeah, all of that. So yeah, I'm not. You know what? I don't want to get activated, so I'm going to move on to the next question. Just think of some of my children, my non-biological children I love, and the things that they do try to express. And I'm like, woo, okay. They're trying to do good. They're trying to do well. I said do good on purpose, but okay. Right. All right. So can you share examples of successful interventions or programs that have positively impacted mental health outcomes for those affected by colorism?
I would just say that the mental health resources, that we have out there for our Black and African American communities, as well as persons of color communities. And I kind of touched base a little bit earlier in regards to those resources, but I know that they have a lot of different successful interventions, programs, even support groups that's created spaces, even kits in education
Mm.
to help within these spaces that are individuals that are affected by colorism or looking for their safe space or need the representation of individuals that look like them. We have BEAM, which is the Black Emotional and Mental Health, and it's a training movement building where they provide like toolkits, education, videos. We have Taraji P. Henson's foundation, which is the
Mm.
Lawrence Henson Foundation, and it's focusing on like mental health, the mental illness in the African American community overall, having focusing on the stigmas, the self stigma that reduction and building trust between the Black people or the community
Mhm.
in the mental health field. I had already touched on the therapy for Black girls, creating
Right.
an online space for mental wellness, and also a referral tool for therapy
Right.
in the directory for individuals that look like us. We have the therapy for Black men.
Mhm.
It's not just a one gender issue.
Right.
We all dealing with this in some forms
Yeah.
or fashion. Then it's just various ones that I'm looking at or just thinking about, like the Safe Black Space. That's another that has various services that are offered to address. Even Black Mental Health Matters, again, where you
Mhm.
platforms and podcasts and individuals that are talking about
Mhm.
highlighted in a healthy way,
Right.
without just projecting our own biases or how we're feeling about certain things, but creating that openness, that mindfulness and awareness to educate, but then creating that safe space for individuals to feel comfortable and safe to share their experiences without us either individuals passing judgment. So I
Right.
just think that when we can collectively come together and have these various resources or interventions and programs that can positively impact
Mhm.
the mental health outcomes for individuals that was affected by colorism or just in a mental health issue as a whole, to
Yeah.
know that there's various different resources or programs that are available, and in which to each his own. You have to find the thing that works for you. I'm not saying that everything is going to work for everyone, but
Right.
to know that they're out there, to do a little bit of research and to get
Yes.
comfortable to see what it is that you need,
Right.
or you may not know exactly, but you may have an idea. And so when you have these various different resources that you kind of look into, then you're like, okay, well, they're saying what I feel like is related to what
Is
I'm.
what's wrong with me? Yeah, or what I perceive to be a challenge that I'm experiencing.
Yes.
Exactly, exactly. So, yeah, no, again, I hope our listeners, our viewers are taking notes. So important you shared resources and yeah, not everything works for everybody, but at the end of the day, we want to heal and grow.
Yes.
I believe we are all beautiful, and to add to that, we can all achieve success, whatever that is that you want that to look like for you. But we are better together than we are apart. Let us not be a part of the divide and conquer, and continue to go along with that, but just find ways to work together and heal one another, right? So I love what you just shared. So, what steps can society, and I'm going to just add to that, like steps society, particularly our community, I'm just going to add to that question, because the reality is we have and continue to have to help ourselves. Let's
Mhm.
be honest. To create a more inclusive and supportive environment that mitigates the harmful effects of colorism on mental health. And we've already been doing some stuff, like we discussed the younger generation, shout out to them, and some things. But what are some other things that you think society, our community, maybe even those who have platforms, including, but not limited to celebrities or those in positions of power, that can help us? So what say you?
I would say definitely continue to still have the conversations, like you said, the platforms that we create, celebrities or even just individuals like us,
Right.
um, to make sure that we are having the awareness and the education about
Mhm.
colorism. Um, I think it's definitely important for our community to, in order to create a more inclusive and supportive environment, that we have to listen to and support those that are impacted. To know that skin tone discrimination is a deeply personal issue that can impact a person's confidence and sense of self. So being mindful of the things that we say, and how we have said those particular things or statements, but also to make space for them to feel comfortable or feel safe enough to even express what they're feeling. Practicing active listening. That is key to that. Sometimes we just need to listen. We don't need a response. We just need to listen.
Say nothing. Say nothing.
Process it. But then there are moments where it's important for us to say something. So even if you witness behavior that perpetuates colorism, it may not be directly towards you, but it could be a person that's right with you. Speak up and say something. Communicate, because silence, it says a lot too. Especially when it's right there in your face and you have opportunity to kind of speak up. Don't be, of course, not confrontational or pick a fight, but just like, hey, that was, I felt, or just stay like, that might not have been the best way of words, or you have to be mindful of others' feelings, and just be mindful and watch what we say, because everyone around us may perceive that or take it in a different way. So we don't want to be disrespectful or to cause harm to a person's healing or even what they're already internalizing individually. Let them know, stating that, again, being accountable and calling individuals out, like, hey, I feel obligated as your friend to let you know that comment wasn't needed. It wasn't or I wondered if you considered the impact of your words, or if that was on the other foot, if they would have said that to you, how would you feel?
Exactly.
It's like, it sounds like that you're making some assumptions about skin tone, and that's something that you need to work on and unpack, because you're already projecting your own implicit biases, and you need to know how that comment landed on those individuals. And if you don't say it to you, then don't say it back. Or even if someone does say something in regards to colorism, then you can ask them to explain and just say, I didn't find that funny. So what did you mean by that? Because you're like, show me where.
Let me know how that was meant to be. So exactly.
Absolutely. It's definitely important to, be the friend to call out, because a true friend is one that's not going to just agree with everything that you say, but embrace those hard conversations, have those crucial conversations, and hold you accountable. That's what a friend
that's what a friend really is. And truth be told, some people who are a true friend would appreciate that, because sometimes, truth be told, they don't even realize they're doing it, because like we've discussed, we are used to hearing certain things in our past by those before us that we might just accidentally just say something and we're like, oh, wow. But someone reminding or letting us know that's helpful, right? So we want to be friends. And for somebody that appreciates that, that's a true friend. They want that, gentle correction. And for someone who is like not, happy that you asked them that, well, reconsider your friendships.
Right. And no,
I'm happy to say it just like that. We can wish everyone well, but not everybody needs to be our friend. We need to
be in our
if it's not bothering them that they're saying things that could be harmful to people, then so man, oh man, Miss Terry Floyd, once again, you have dropped gems. I am in a spirit of gratitude to be able to be here with you, listen and learn from you, as I hope the audience, the viewers, have been doing as well. So thank you so much for being here. We are so grateful for you always. And unless there's anything else you want to say before I, wish you well as you depart.
I'll just again thank you as always for the opportunity to share the platform with you and have these uncomfortable conversations, but that are necessary. We're focusing on healing and helping our community as well as educating them. So thank you.
Yes. Thank you so much, Miss Terry Floyd. Yes, be well, and until the next time, and you have a wonderful day.
You too.
All right.